Hey guys, welcome back. We're back out at the long range to continue the series on the 1,000-yard, $1,000 rifle. In the first series, or the first episode of the series, we showed you the Savage Model 10. The Savage Model 10 that we have here is a custom model. It does have a heavy bolt handle, tactical bolt handle, has an 18-inch threaded barrel, and of course the trademark Accu trigger. We've been very happy with the performance of the rifle, so I think at the price point, which is $599, this is the gun we're going to go with. It certainly meets our budget requirements, and again, we're trying to stay under $1,000. The rings we're using are currently Weaver rings. Again, that's under $100, so it leaves us right around $300 or so for a scope. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we face in this series, and trying to find that 1,000-yard, $1,000 rifle is finding the right scope. Now, when you're looking at scopes in the $200 to $300 price range, there's a lot of scopes out there, but the quality isn't the same. All of them have their pluses and their minuses, and that's what we're kind of trying to work through right now. Originally, in the first series, or the first episode of the series, we showed you the Lucid L5 scope, and I wasn't real impressed with the optics clarity. It wasn't horrible, but I was thinking perhaps there was something better out there, so I wanted to try some other scopes. Next up is this Bushnell scope that you see on here, which is an Ultra HD, which is a 4.5 to 14 power scope. So this does have a 1-inch body, which differs from the L7, which has a 30mm body. The 1-inch tube is not something I like. I prefer to have a 30mm. It gives me a little bit more elevation adjustment typically, but we're going to go with it, see if we can get to 1,000 yards. We do have a 20 MOA base on it. So if this doesn't work out for us, our next option is a scope I just got in the mail, and this is from Primary Arms. This is their 4 to 14 power scope, and this one has a mil reticle, and I should also say that the Bushnell has a mil reticle on it. This scope meets our budget requirements, has a mil reticle, has MRAD adjustments, where the Bushnell has MOA adjustments. And so that looks pretty promising to me. Again, it's up to 14 power, does have side focus, parallax adjustment, as does this Bushnell Ultra HD. So we're going to get to doing some shooting. We don't know if we're going to actually get to the Primary Arms scope or not. We're going to see how things go with the Bushnell optics. If things aren't working out, we'll switch them out and we'll jump over to the Primary Arms. We'll decide that later in the video. Anyway, enough talking. Let's do a little bit of shooting. The optics clarity on the Bushnell is pretty good. It's definitely better than the Lucid. I'm able to bring the reticle into sharp focus. The 14 power is a little bit soft for 1,000-yard shooting, but I can clearly see my target. One thing I've noticed about the Ultra HD is that I have to have my eye perfectly behind the scope every single time. There's very little room for head movement. You got to get your cheek weld perfect every time. It's not very forgiving in that regard, but it's nice and sharp. We got the rifle zeroed with the Bushnell sight, but right away I discovered a problem. We were unable to make predictable adjustments to the scope. If I dialed in 2 mils of adjustment down, I would see 3 mils on paper. Other times I could dial in adjustments and I'd see no movement of the shot placement on paper at all. Something wasn't right. How many mils?
You were 2 up.
The markings on the Bushnell scope are small and hard to read with my aging eyes. The markings on the Lucid and the Primary Arms scope are much larger and much easier to see.
Regrouping. Still 1/2 mil high.
Yeah, I came down 2 clicks.
1/2 mil right. It's not adjusting, huh?
Adjustments are out of whack because you said, I mean, I can see it. We were 2 mils high. I came down 2 mils and it came down 3. Yeah. I went back up a mil and it went pretty close to center. So I don't think the adjustments on the scope are. It's going to make it really hard going to 1,000 if those adjustments are that far off. When this happens, you need to verify everything is seated properly. Make sure the rings are tight on the scope, make sure that the rings are tight on the mount, and also make sure that the mount is tight on the rifle. For this task, I broke out the Wheeler Fat Wrench, which is an adjustable torque wrench, to verify that everything was properly tightened down. Despite confirming the mounts were all tightened within spec, the rifle was still stringing shots all over the place. There was something else wrong. So we're seeing some erratic behavior in the accuracy department with the Savage. Gone through and checked the scope rings, the mount, the base. Everything seems good. The action was loose. We have 2 action screws on the rifle. There's one here and there's one hidden underneath the magazine release here. The front action screw was loose. It was about ready to fall out of the rifle. When I moved the rifle, if I grabbed the receiver and twisted it in the stock, I could feel a little bit of movement, so that was the first clue. And we've never taken this rifle out of its stock before. So we tightened that down to 30 inch-pounds, and then also tightened the rear action screw, which was a little bit loose, but not nearly as loose, and hit that to 30 inch-pounds. And now we're back to shooting. Everything's nice and tight, but for whatever reason, it's still not grouping very well. Where we've seen decent accuracy on this rifle before, sub-MOA accuracy, using a different scope, it's stringing shots everywhere, even with Federal Gold Medal match, which we usually have good results with. So at this point, it seems to be the consensus is there might be something wrong with this Bushnell scope. So I'm going to fire a few more rounds of the Federal Gold Medal match to see what type of accuracy we can get after checking everything out, tightening everything down. And if we can't get a group out of it, we're going to have to switch scopes. I've been behind the gun quite a bit this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and let Aaron, the camera guy, take a few shots. Believe it or not, the guy's actually a pretty good shot with the rifle. So I'm going to put him behind the gun and see what he can do. Maybe it's the loose nut behind the butt plate and it's not the gun or the scope at all. So we'll see what happens with that.
Whoa. Throw it up.
No.
No. That's all over the place.
All right, so we mounted the primary arm scope to the rifle, and it definitely looks like there was a problem with the Bushnell. It was stringing shots all over the place. We're talking 2, maybe 3-inch groups. It was stringing horizontally. And so I made the decision to go ahead and put the primary arms on, and we just shot a Federal Gold Medal match group, and it's an inch or less at 100 yards. We have to run down range and check it, but looking at it through the mill reticle, it's looking MOA or maybe a little under MOA, which is what we'd expect from the rifle. So I think we're going to go with the primary arms. Now, what I can tell you about the primary arms is the optics clarity on this is surprisingly good. You know, for a scope that comes to market under 300 bucks, I think I'm going to have to double check the price. I'll put the price down below. Of the scopes that we've tested so far, I'm starting to favor this one. Nice clear picture. One little speck that you can see in the reticle, nothing major. I see the same speck in the Bushnell, and I also saw even more specks in the Lucid. But the clarity, the ability to see the reticle is spot on. I was able to dial it in. The click adjustments, a little bit mushy, but very positive. With the Bushnell, I was making adjustments to my elevation and windage. I would dial in a full mil, and I would see no movement on the target. When I'm dialing in adjustments here, I can see the results on the target immediately. Everything seems to be working nicely so far on the scope. Also, I have the parallax set to 100 yards. It's crystal clear at 100 yards. With the Lucid, if I would set it to 100 yards, it wouldn't be, the parallax would be off. I'd have it turned up to like 200. So everything seems to be working very well on the primary arm scope. And I'm going to do some more shooting with it. Maybe we'll be able to get it out to 1,000 yards today. All right, guys, so we just got everything dialed in using the mil-dot calculator on the iPhone. Gave us a ballistic solution of 11.13 mils elevation, which was just a little bit low, but I am using the ballistics for my Reaper, which is a 2-inch longer barrel. So I had to hold just a little high, favored high, and with the wind, we're doing a 3 mil hold left, and once we got that dope, we hit the steel ringer. So here we go again, see if I can put another round on target using the same dope if the wind conditions haven't changed. Nailed it. This primary arm scope is actually really, really clear. I'm liking the scope. Let's see if we can nail it one more time. Can't tell. Let's try one more. Wind conditions look like they dropped off a bit. Got it. Yeah, spot on. So I'm really liking the Primary Arms scope. It's got the clarity. It's the adjustments are spot on according to the ballistics calculator, so the adjustments are solid, and it meets our price point. All right, guys, well, it's time to wind things up. It's kind of getting late here. We're going to lose sunlight, and we have a 2-hour drive home, but so far it looks like the Primary Arms 4 to 14 power scope is the way we're going to go with our $1,000 rifle. We started off with the Lucid, and the problem I had with this particular scope is that the optics clarity just wasn't there. It's a little bit hazy, didn't look very clear, and so I decided I wanted to try something else. It's not a bad scope, it just didn't flip my switch. I wanted to see if I could find something with a little bit better clarity. Moved up to the Bushnell HD, Ultra HD. Definitely had better clarity. I could clearly see the reticle. However, we had all sorts of problems with this scope. We did have a problem with the action screws being loose on the rifle. We troubleshooted that, fixed it, and then we're still seeing shots stringing all over the place, and it turned out to be the Bushnell scope. I think it's defective, so this one isn't working out for us. Finally wound up with the Primary Arms 4x14. Has a mil reticle, has MRAD adjustments on the towers, has a good side focus or parallax adjustment. Everything seems to work good, has great clarity. Got it out to 1,000 yards using my ballistics calculator on my iPhone. Told us 11 mils, 11.13 mils. We dialed that in. And that put us pretty much right on once we compensated for the wind. Again, I could see the plate take the hit. We could hear it. It seems to be a really good scope, especially for the money, right around 300 bucks. So that's where we're at. We'll probably do one more video in the series once we have more time to spend out here at the 1,000-yard range with the rifle. But if you guys have any questions about anything you've seen in this video so far, you can ask us questions on our Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/military arms. You can also find us on Google+. And we also have the Bang Switch blog, which I invite you guys to swing by and check out. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you guys soon.